party firm Thompson and Clark. RNZ has been told that no government agency has contracted Thompson and Clark since the Labour-led government took power. State Services Minister Chris Hipkins told RNZ that Thompson and Clark's relationships with government agencies, quote, certainly looks like it has been inappropriate. Let's speak now with the opposition leader, National Party leader Simon Bridges. He's in the Auckland Studio. Good morning.
Kia ora, Susie.
So the situation with Thompson and Clark, they were being used extensively, seemingly, when National was in government. Do you back the use of Thompson and Clark?
I think ultimately it's not for me to back. I don't have any, a dog in this race, if you want to put it that way. It's a very operational matter that ministers didn't have anything to do with. Now, all of that said, my sense of some of the email trails between the public sector and Thompson and Clark are a bad look. In some cases, a really bad look.
So are you saying that National Party ministers didn't know about this going on?
Well, look, I was in the last year, I think it was, a minister in charge of MB, and in that regard in charge of procurement. But this was not something that was raised with me in relation to Thompson and Clark.
Have you asked any of the other MPs in the National Caucus that were ministers in some of the agencies that were seemingly heavily using Thompson and Clark?
No, I haven't. As I say, I think it's deeply operational. But as I say also, look, let's be really clear. Some of these emails do look like a really bad look. I think what is important is that the State Services Commission does do their work on this. We do need first-class procurement principles being adhered to, and if there's changes that need to come as a result of this, and it seems to me there certainly will be, that's a very good thing.
It seems curious, though, that there has been no work contracted with them since the Labour-led government took office, but yet there was clearly a lot of work contracted before then under the National government, and you're saying that National knew nothing about it. What is the relationship between Thompson and Clark and the National Party? Well,
as far as I'm concerned, there is no relationship. I don't know this firm. I don't know these people.
But you back using third-party agencies to do this kind of investigating, do you?
Well, because ultimately I think what is true is you do need appropriate security arrangements. We saw that with the Ashburton Winds case, and there was a need to be very serious about some of these things. Ultimately, who is used should never be a decision for a Minister of the Crown. It should be an operational matter. But as I say, I'm not trying to be in any way defensive about Thompson and Clark. They mean not a lot to me, and it is a situation where some of the emails do seem a very bad look. It should be investigated, it is, and it seems to be pretty likely, as it should be, that there will be changes as a result of that.
Okay, what about the public service more generally? The public service cap that was imposed by National. Was that foolish?
No, I think it was very much a reaction to what we saw, and ultimately to a need for good value for money for taxpayers. If you think about the 9 years prior, our viewers, public sector went up by 50%, but the outcomes did not. And so we wanted to make sure we were getting good value.
So hang on, so you think it was a better idea to put a cap on the staff numbers, so instead you got a blowout on pricier contractors and consultants that increased by 38% or 12,000 full-time positions?
Ultimately, the cap was a device, and I don't really care what is used, but to ensure value for taxpayers. Now, to your point...
Is it good value?
Yeah.
Is it good value to be using contractors and consultants essentially in public service jobs, but they cost a lot more?
Absolutely. Let me address that head on. The reality of contractors, and in fact hundreds of million, were invested in engineering expertise, very particular expertise around the Canterbury earthquakes and associated earthquakes. Now, it seems to me that is absolutely right, because you don't want to have expertise in-house on the basis that, you might need it for a rainy day. And so, I don't think we can be too hard and fast about these things, but I do think there is a role for contractors with appropriate expertise who are outside rather than in-house.
In those sorts of numbers?
Because ultimately, Susie, that's about value for taxpayers' money. The worry here with the removal of the cap, if I can just say this, is that you will see a spiralling of costs without the outcomes, and so we'll be watching that very closely.
Let's also talk a little bit about your comments that you made on Radio Hauraki on Friday. Do you owe the Ardern Gayford family an apology?
No, I think it's an incredibly light-hearted interview. I mean, as I made clear there, and let me make it clear, really clear now, I wish that the family and their little one all the very best and happiness.
I'm not sure that was entirely clear from the interview on Radio Hauraki, because was it light-hearted banter, or was it actually just casual discrimination?
No, not at all. I think it's a very light-hearted interview, and I would encourage people who want to. I suspect RNZ listeners are not necessarily listening to Hauraki at the same time, to go and listen to the interview in full and in context to understand what was going on there.
Yeah. Do you think your comments could be damaging at all?
No, look, I think it's a very light-hearted. As I say, I encourage people to actually go and listen to the interview in full. Look, I am a father of 3 young children myself. My youngest girl is 6 months old. This is a really special time for this family, and I hope they can enjoy it and have time out to bond with their little one.
Do you think your comments were clever or ignorant?
No, well, look, as I said, it's a very light-hearted interview. I encourage people, should they want to go and listen to it in full, to get the context and to understand what was going on there.
Simon Bridges, the leader of the opposition, thanks very much for your time this morning on Morning Report. It's 20 to 8.
A UK move to force restaurants to add calorie counts to their menus is being watched closely in New Zealand. The UK has announced their new childhood obesity plan, which aims to halve obesity rates within 12 years. Tough new measures include